The next time someone tells you that the Samsung Galaxy S4 is too big, smile at them, laugh, and then say, "Have you seen the Galaxy Mega 6.3? I'm Andrew with mobileburn.com. Here's a review of the biggest phone you've probably seen this year. It goes without saying that the Galaxy Mega 6.3 is obviously a mega size phone. I can't even get it in frame unless I'm very careful about the way I hold it. But aside from the large size, it's very familiar. It looks pretty much like every Samsung phone that you've seen. You can easily mistake this for a Galaxy Note 2 were not for it being so big. And that's kind of expected. When you have a 6.3-inch display, it's going to look very big on the phone itself. Speaking of the display, it's a super clear LCD screen, and it is HD. But it's 720p instead of 1080. Now that might be a little bit of a disappointment because when you want to see a screen this big, you'd love to see it have like full range of all these things going on. You'd love it to be a very dense display. But in reality, it's just a good display rather than a great one because of battery concerns, and because if the resolution was a lot higher, you need a much bigger battery. So the good thing about that is when you're watching video, it's pretty big. So it's kind of nice to see it. When I was on the train looking at video, it was nice to have such a large screen. So if you're someone who watches Netflix or YouTube a lot at home, or you download your own movies to watch when you're on the go, you're going to get a decent color profile. You're going to get a whole lot going on with the display because it's so big. Part of the benefit to having a display this large is that you do less scrolling. Actually, I don't need to do any scrolling at all right now when I'm looking at my pocket list. And when you do read an article, obviously you have a lot much more space. So things tend to look better or look bigger, I should say, not necessarily better. You've got a whole lot of text fitting into a big screen. But there are challenges to that, obviously. Number one, the size. Aside from me being unable to hold it in frame, a lot of times it's very hard to use this with one hand. When I was walking down the street looking at Google Maps, or I need to navigate, like if I need to get to the notification screen the way I'm holding it right now, obviously I have to do some readjusting, and it can be easy to slip out of your hands. In terms of the texture, there's no real grip texture. It's more of a glossy plastic finish. Of course, it's a Samsung device, so you knew that already. But it does have like these little dots on, like a pattern of a bunch of little dots, and it looks a little wavy on camera. When you see it in person and the light shines on it, it's very reflective, so you can see a lot on the back material. It's very nice. On the sides, of course, it's got that fake chrome type of accent like we've seen on other Samsung devices. The buttons, you have power right here on the right hand side. You have a microphone jack, an IR port in case you want to control your television or browse with Watch On, which has a lot of different channels and a TV guide type of thing. You have volume up and down on the left, and at the bottom you have a micro USB port that also supports MHL and USB HS 2.0. At the top you have a headset for phone calls that has decent volume, and on the back you have your speaker. It's in one place. It reaches an okay volume, gets decent volume. The quality isn't the best out there, but it's available. Then you have an 8 megapixel camera on the back with LED flash. Now the camera, if you look at it from this is a phone, it's not the best out there. It's good, it's decent, it's passable. It's going to be pretty noisy in low light photos. It's not going to do much when you have the LED flash. But I will say that in sunlight, it's obviously a decent camera, and there's a lot of camera modes on here. Like you've seen in the past with Samsung devices, they really go out of their way to try to make the camera dress up with a bunch of different shooting modes. You've got Beauty Face for when you do your selfies, and Best Photos, which takes a bunch of photos at once and allows you to choose the best one. And you've got Continuous Shots for motion. best face to correct when someone's looking away from the camera. Of course, there's a sound and shot feature, which I don't really much pay attention to because it's basically just one picture with some audio in the background. If you want to get some HDR photos going to make your photo look a little bit better, you've got the rich tone. Sometimes it doesn't really make much of a difference in terms of what you're shooting, but it can come in handy. Then you've got panorama for taking pictures of scenes, sports for taking action shots, nights for when you're taking nighttime photos and you want to adjust it to the lighting. And then there's auto, which pretty much covers everything. This is your automatic one, obviously. And you can do adjustments for size of the photo, turning off flash. You also have this little microphone setting, so when you have voice control, if I say take a picture or whatever, I can take a picture with the camera. So in terms of the quality, be sure to follow the link in the description below to see some up-close photos of how the Galaxy Mega 6.3 performs. I'd say it's good, not great, but if you consider this a tablet, it's a great camera. If you consider it more of a phone, it's just a good camera. That phone versus tablet display is going to color how you view this device. Now, we've seen people say the Galaxy Note 2 is a so-called phablet, a phone meets tablets. I'd say it's more of a really big phone, but when you look at the Galaxy Mega, this definitely trends a little more towards the tablet category. When you see it next to Galaxy S4, you see how much it dwarfs it in terms of size, width, height, everything. It's a lot bigger. And it's noticeable too, obviously. When you see it next to a Galaxy Nexus 7, you can see that this is smaller, Obviously, there's a big size difference here as well. But when you see it, this definitely represents more of the middle ground between phone and tablet. And that might be convenient for some people. A lot of people might walk around with these two devices each day. You've got your phone for making phone calls and everything, and then you've got your tablet for reading ebooks or watching some more movies on a bigger screen. With the Galaxy Mega, you kind of get that single option that you don't need to walk around with two different devices. And it might be good for some people, it might not be. If you can handle the size, it is a good thing. My issue with it, if you read our written review, I'm telling a story that when I'm walking down the street looking at Google Maps, it's not the most comfortable thing because obviously this doesn't lend itself well to one-handed usage. There is a setting that you can turn on to improve the one-handed operation, but just the sheer size of the device alone makes that hard to do. Overall, I'd say that this is definitely not something that someone with small hands or someone who wants to use one hand will be able to use consistently, but it can be something that comes in handy in case if you have the willingness to try to use something that's big. This is actually a selling point for a lot of people, believe it or not. I'm not one of those people, but I can see the value of someone being able to walk around with a single device. And like I mentioned, here's a one-handed usage. If you have the calculator or the lock screen, it tries to lend itself well to just shortening things to one side of the screen, and you can switch it over to the other side if you're left-handed. But like I said, it's not going to be the easiest thing out there, and not all apps are made for this kind of mode. The Galaxy Mega 6.3 runs Android 4.1 with TouchWiz, so you kind of know what to expect. One of those things is the being able to use multi-window, which pretty much splits your screen into two panels and allows you to do two things at once. So I can read Twitter while I read the news, and I can see what's going on in the world, and I say, oh, Microsoft purchased Nokia today, and then I can see Twitter to see what other people are saying about it. So it's kind of cool, and I can obviously get to that with a little button right here. And if I want to disable that so that doesn't come up anymore, all I have to do is press home, hold down on the back button, and then it fades away from the screen until I press the back button again. I can also control my TV like I mentioned before. I have quick toggles along the edge. I can tap this button to see all of them at once, and I can tap this button to edit which ones appear or the order that they appear. It's not everything that you've seen on the Galaxy S4 or those type of phones will be available though. For instance, when I'm in my gallery, I can use AirView to see previews of what's in other folders. So if I hold my finger above a gallery, it shows me some of the images that are contained in that folder, and that's something I can access pretty easily. But once I'm in there, I can't do the air gesture thing because there's no sensor to pick that up. That also means when I get an incoming phone call, I can't just wave my hand and automatically enter the phone that way. So it's not truly everything that you've seen on the Galaxy S4, but it is similar. When I hold down on the home button, oh wait, did I not mention that? There are physical home buttons, of course, because this is a Samsung device, and you've got menu and back on the sides, obviously. This is the multitasking view. If I want to get rid of something, I can just close it. If I want to switch to something else, I can tap on that page, and I can go to settings fairly easily. This is also going to be how you access Google Now. If you tap this button right here, this closes everything. But if I tap the button in the middle, I can go to Google Now and see my personalized search and updates and all of that. In terms of internal specs, it has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, but only 12 of that you'll actually be able to use because the system software takes up about 4 gigs, obviously. But if you run out of space, it does support a micro SD slot up to 64 gigabytes. That's obviously a plus. Something that's a little disappointing, though, is the battery. It's only 3200 milliamps. Now, I would have hoped for something bigger, considering that the Galaxy Note 2 has 3100 milliamps, and this is such a big display that you're obviously going to use a lot of power. That's why they went with the 720 resolution rather than 1080. If they had cranked it up to that high resolution, it would have ate through battery life a lot sooner. In terms of what you can expect from battery, if you're a moderate user, you'll definitely get through a full day without issue. If you're someone that spends a lot of time reading, having the display on, obviously that's going to be what eats up most of this battery. You should still be good. On one day when I was using it a lot, I got about 9 hours of use. From the time I left, I was listening to music, I was reading, I was watching a little bit of video. I watched the G.I. Joe video I showed you earlier, and the battery still lasted for the full day. By the time I got home, I definitely needed to charge, but the battery, it lasted me while I was doing what I was doing. Right now, in standby time, it's very good. You see 10 hours, actually 11 hours have passed, and only 21% of the battery has been used. So it does very good. When the phone is idle, it doesn't use up a lot of energy. In terms of performance, it's no world beater. When you run benchmarks on it, you can see that it's pretty much behind last year's Galaxy Note 2. It's running a 1.7 gigahertz dual-core processor. Now, I know that's going to disappoint some people, but in terms of actual real-world usage, it's not that bad. It's definitely a step behind the Samsung Galaxy S4, but in terms of the overall performance, loading apps might be a little behind and not as quick. But remember, that's a relative comparison. Not as quick doesn't mean slow. When I load things, typically it comes up fairly quickly. I don't have any problems when I'm trying to play a game or load Google Now or something like that. Everything. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now with that bigger font, it's a lot easier for me to read. And you will experience things like that. Obviously, this isn't your average phone. It's not meant to be. This is targeted to a very specific person. If you're someone who wants that big size, that big screen, the ability to do more than you typically can on the limited amount of your size of your phone, this can be something that will definitely come in handy. But for most people, I think this is a little too much phone. When you're walking around, it's not obviously one-handed use is not going to be very comfortable. When you're walking around trying to do other things, it just doesn't feel as natural as a phone. It works great when you're in a stationary position and you're not mobile. But if you try to drive with this and look at Google Maps for a second, it might be a little hard. But if you have it in a in-car phone holder, it can be a little bit better to have that really big screen to look at Google Maps when you're staring at the right really quick, sneaking a quick peek at it. Overall, I'd say that this is a good phone for the person who wants a really big phone. Not just a big phone, a really big phone. Previously, I said the Galaxy Note 2 is as big as you can make a phone and still make it comfortable or at least feasible with one hand. And I've never been more convinced of that in my life until I use the Galaxy Mega 6.3. It's a lot of phone, but it might be the right amount of phone for someone who's looking for something a little bit closer to a tablet. This is Andrew with Mobile Burn reviewing the Galaxy Mega 6.3, available now at AT&T. Thanks for watching the video, and if you liked it, feel free to click like and subscribe.